I'm Chloe Evans, and I'm 32 years old. It's 3 in the morning, and I'm standing frozen on a filthy, rain-soaked Boston sidewalk. My bare feet are bleeding, and I'm wrapped in a musty old blanket a homeless man was kind enough to give me. Right in front of my eyes, apartment 4B, the place I built and cherished for 6 long years, is blowing up into pieces. Violent, bright, orange flames are bursting through my bedroom window, painting the night sky red. I know I've lost everything. I'm completely wiped out. All my clothes, my ID, the furniture I picked out piece by piece, and worst of all, my late father's vintage vinyl collection. The only sacred memory I had left of him since he passed away when I was 22. It's all turning to ash right in front of me, accompanied by the brutal crackle of burning wood and shattering glass. But trust me, that wasn't even the worst part of tonight. The absolute worst part, the thing that tore my heart out and completely broke me, was when I called my own mother for help, panicking and desperate, only for her to instantly hang up on me after saying something so cold, so heartless. It's insane. If you want to know what she said, and what horrifying truth is hiding behind that fire, stay with me until the end of this video. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now, so you don't miss any of the dark, twisted chapters ahead. Everything happened like a horror movie on fast forward. The fire alarm shrieked, tearing the dead silence of the night apart at exactly 2:47 a.m. I bolted upright, my mind completely blank. Before I could even process what was happening, a suffocating chemical stench hit my nose, choking the breath right out of my throat. Survival instinct kicked in. I blindly grabbed an old pair of shoes under my bed and rushed for the door. But the second I cracked it open, a wave of blistering heat and thick, jet-black smoke slammed into me, swallowing me whole. The smoke was so dense, I swear I couldn't see my own hand right in front of my face. My eyes burned, tears and sweat poured down my face, and my chest throbbed from the lack of oxygen. To this day, I don't even remember how I fumbled my way down 4 flights of stairs in that absolute panic. In that moment, I had just one thought running through my head: run. Get out. No matter what. My stupid shoes slipped off somewhere between the 3rd floor and the street when I tripped. My bare feet slammed onto the freezing concrete, scraping against sharp debris and gravel, but I didn't feel a thing. The pain didn't register. It wasn't until I finally stumbled onto the curb and gasped in the freezing Boston air that I realized I had just cheated death. The firefighters arrived, dragging hoses and rushing into the ruined building with axes, finally killing the flames before they could spread to the neighboring units. But my apartment, 4B, was completely wiped off the map. Just a charred, soaking wet pile of rubble. An old sweater my great-grandmother knitted. The wedding albums from a marriage that never got its happy ending. All gone forever. I stood there, exhausted, completely alone, shaking uncontrollably in the cold. And it wasn't because of the weather, it was the sheer emptiness and helplessness taking over my entire soul. I slumped down onto the curb, shivering for nearly 2 hours, before I could even gather enough strength to call my mom. She picked up on the 4th ring, her voice thick with sleep, and laced with irritation at being disturbed in the middle of the night. Choking back tears, I told her my apartment had burned to the ground, that I was completely wiped out, didn't even have a change of clothes, and had absolutely nowhere to go tonight. There was a long, terrifying silence on the other end of the line. Then, she dropped a bombshell in the flattest, most heartless tone I've ever heard in my life. "Not our problem. You should have been more careful." And then, she hung up. I stared blankly at my phone screen, waiting for it to ring again, waiting for her to say it was just a sick joke. But the screen stayed dark. I was too exhausted to even feel angry, so I just watched, numb, as the firefighters carried axes in and out of the ruined building. 2 days later, a county fire investigator named Logan Vance asked to meet me at the scene to go over what they'd found. I thought it was strange usually. They just file a report and move on, but I needed answers. I needed to know why my entire life had just been tossed into a dumpster like this. When I arrived, that same burnt, wet chemical stench clung to my throat, making it hard to breathe. Logan looked to be around 45, with salt and pepper hair, holding a clipboard. He had a calm, deep voice. He shook my hand and asked a question that made the hairs on my arms stand up. Do you know if anyone has been in or out of your apartment this past week? A friend, an ex, or anyone else with a key? I told him firmly that I live alone, and only my landlord and I have keys. He gave a slow nod, the kind of nod from a guy who knew damn well I wasn't telling the whole story. Logan lowered his voice, explaining that the fire didn't start in the kitchen or from an overloaded outlet. It started at the back bedroom window, where there were no wires or appliances that could have sparked on their own. We found this at the scene, he said, pulling out a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a piece of twisted metal, warped and melted from the heat. But I recognized it instantly. A silver wolf. It was the keychain I'd bought for Austin, my half-brother, 3 years ago back when we were still on speaking terms. Before he begged me for a $12,000 loan to pay off his gambling debts, and I shot him down. It reeks of gasoline, Chloe, Logan said, looking me dead in the eye, his voice completely cold. Someone poured gas along your bedroom window and lit a match. You have 5 seconds to think about who was holding this. I whispered the truth to Logan, and he quietly took notes. Someone had broken in, poured gasoline, set the place on fire, and left that keychain behind like a message. I gasped, my mind racing over what kind of twisted message someone leaves behind when they burn their own sister's home to the ground. That very night, I called my mom back, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. Keeping my voice steady through sheer anger, I laid out exactly what the investigator had pulled from the ashes. Then, I asked her flat out if she knew Austin had been lurking around my building. A dead, heavy silence filled the line. That silence told me everything I needed to know. And then, piece by piece, she started to admit it in that pathetic, defensive way guilty people always do. Austin went to your apartment last week, she mumbled, because he was desperate, and he thought you had cash hidden somewhere that he could just take. She scrambled to make excuses, claiming he didn't mean to start a fire. He just wanted to look for money. But when the neighbor's dog started barking, he panicked. He knocked over a can of paint thinner under the sink, and in a desperate rush to wipe away any trace of the break-in, he lit a match. He naively thought a small fire would destroy the evidence. Instead, the flames tore out of control. Choking back my rage, I asked her how long she'd known. She said she'd known since the morning after the fire, when Austin crawled back home, crying and shaking, confessing to everything. It was her who told him to keep his mouth shut. She told him it would all blow over, and I'd never find out. So that was the real reason she told me it wasn't her problem. She wasn't just being cold about a random accident, she was using that coldness to shield her golden boy from a crime that destroyed my home, my livelihood, and every last memory of my late father. She didn't care that I was left standing on a freezing sidewalk in a borrowed blanket, with absolutely nowhere to go. I didn't waste a second. I handed everything over to Logan. The keychain, the timeline, my mother's confession, every single detail. Austin was arrested 4 days later on charges of arson and burglary. My mother wasn't legally charged since covering for him after the fact didn't meet the threshold for a crime, but whatever relationship we had left died that night. I cut off all contact with her the moment I gave Logan my brother's name. I'm still haunted by that phone call, but now I understand its bitter, twisted meaning. She wasn't indifferent to my apartment burning down. Shielding her favorite child was simply more important to her than my life or my grief. Right now, I'm rebuilding my life, piece by piece. I moved into a smaller apartment in a neighboring town, and I'm the only one with a key. I installed new locks, security cameras, and a fireproof safe to protect the few photos my friends managed to dig up and copy for me. Some nights, I can still smell the smoke, even when everything is completely peaceful. Some nights, my mother's cold voice still echoes in my head, brushing me off. But looking back at the ashes, I've realized something about myself, something I never knew before the fire took everything away. I don't need anyone's permission to start over, and I don't need anyone's approval to protect myself from the people who were supposed to love me. If you've ever felt the sting of your own family turning their backs on you, you'll understand why I had to completely cut ties. Drop a comment below to share your thoughts, hit that like button to show your support, and don't forget to subscribe right now, so you don't miss any of the dark, twisted chapters ahead.